Welcome to the Mergers and Acquisition Show, and you are in for a treat because our guest has exited his company for about $500 million, and we have a Chicago connection. So it's going to be a great interview. Rich Galano sold his company, and Windy City Wire, which a lot of people think Chicago is windy because of the wind. It has to do with its tumultuous politics as well. Complete drama every single time. My partner here on the show, Dennis, is the one who got rich, and also our guest has a brand new book called Down to the Wire that is taking by storm. Rich, welcome to the show.
Thank you, JT. Dennis, good morning. How are you guys?
Good morning.
Normally, I would start off the show with just going straight into questions about the 500 million, but since we both have a Chicago connection together, I want to sort of know how did you get started as an entrepreneur? How do we start before we get to the $500 million?
Probably like most entrepreneurs, right? You're working for a company and I was a sales guy, so I got frustrated because they kept changing my commission plan. And what I came to realize, I was a young kid. They were paying me what they thought a person of my age should earn rather than what I should have earned, irregardless of age. And there was never any every year, everything would change. Sometimes they would change by the year. If I was killing my numbers, they would change my plan. So it was just constant bullshit. So, and plus the company had gone through iterations, bankruptcy, which is one of the greatest things you can do as a young person, work for a company in bankruptcy. Learned a lot. And I was also at the same time going through a gambling addiction, right? So I became a compulsive addicted gambler. Then I went through help. I went through Gamblers Anonymous, going through recovery process. Your head gets clear, your mind gets clear. And what I determined was there was just a misalignment of interest between the principles of the company I worked for and what my principles were and what I thought a business should be like. And I was 25. I was highly employable. I was not married, no girlfriend, no obligations at the time other than my gambling debts. And I just said, fuck it, if that's okay to say, JT. I said, fuck it, and I'm going to go off on my own. And I'm going to try this now because if I don't try this, I'll regret this the rest of my life.
How old were you?
I was 25 when I incorporated the business, and I was about 3 weeks into my 26th birthday when we actually opened our doors.
I see a personality trait because when I first moved from Chicago, from Canada to Chicago, your 25-year-old was a very tradey kind of trader downtown Chicago at the Merc. The ones with they used to be on the pit on the wall that really kind of like high flying kind of life and involving the gambling and stuff like that, like which now obviously with the computers has changed the game. I saw that when I first got there to Chicago. Was that your personality, like more of the sort of the high flying? You got gambling, you got this. I'm sure alcohol was involved. We're doing Quaaludes.
Um,
By the way, that's the first time I learned about Quaaludes. I had no idea what they were. Uh,
yeah. Fortunately, I didn't get into drugs. There was a lot of cocaine in those early days flying around the office. Didn't get into the drugs. Really was not a big drinker. I suffered some loss. My grandmother died. I was engaged. My fiance and I split up, and I had always gambled. High school, college, my freshman year when I was away at Illinois State.
sports gambling,
Pardon me.
sports gambling.
Oh, I did sports gambling, poker, blackjack. Those were the three vices. Yeah, mostly what demised me was 3 day bender on college and pro football. Just couldn't take anymore. Friday through a Sunday, blew my brains out. But mostly a lot of poker, a lot of blackjack at the casino boats, and sports betting. And like you said, it's different today. I will tell you, I had to work to gamble, right? You had to pick up the phone, call your bookie. There was no internet to look at the lines.
Right.
You had to look at the paper, call the book, get the lines. You were If you didn't have satellite TV, you're stuck watching one game and you're waiting for the other scores to come across the screen. You had to get your car, drive 20, 30 miles to a casino or get in a plane and fly to Vegas. Today, the casino's right here.
Would you have done better back then, or you still would have lost because of the addictive nature?
Listen, when you're a degenerate compulsive gambler, there is no winning. The only way you win, JT, is by quitting. It's an
Mm.
oxymoron, right? You
Right.
know, so how do you win? You win by surrender. That's just the way it is. And I surrendered God, 33 years ago. Yeah, 33 years clean last week. So,
So it's
um,
interesting because a lot of people, you can take a lot of bad gambles in business. So how do you not gamble business? What did you start in Chicago when you were 26, and explain to us how the idea came about?
all right. So I worked for a wire and cable company, and I love the business, love wire and cable. It gets in your blood, it's infective. Um, I had an idea when I was at the old company, and I took it to the management team. I was part of the management team. I should say I took it to the C-suite, and it was an idea to take a commodity, right? Because wire and cable, for all practical purposes, is a commodity. And I was working my way into selling more of a niche market, low voltage wire. So this is 30 years ago, more than that, 35, almost 35 years ago. And um, it's what we recognize today as access control and fire alarm and audio, video, and these things were just really starting to emerge. And all the wire back then was basically vanilla. And I wanted to take something vanilla and make it chocolate strawberry and mint chocolate chip. And it required thinking outside the box, and it required some thought, and the other company just weren't interested in it. So I created a name for a product, and I knew when I left, I wanted to build the company that didn't exist in the wire and cable world. And that's what I did. That's what I sought out to do. I wanted to build the company that could be, not the company that was. And that's we took a commodity and basically non-commoditized it by using colors and different print legends, and then wrapping it all up in this really incredible story that the salespeople I hired could go out and narrate. Sales is telling a story, so they could tell a great story to a market, and you know, we just built a business year after year after year after year. We
What
went through.
was your USP? What did you do different that nobody else was doing? And what was the moment that you knew it took off?
Okay, so if you've ever looked at an electrical outlet or a light switch,
Hmm.
there are generally 3 or 5 wires going to that outlet, and they are generally black, white, green. You may have a red, okay, and then I think the fifth color was brown. I might be mistaken, but those colors are there so when an electrician's working on it, they don't get electrocuted or shocked. Right? One's the ground, one's the neutral, one's the positive. In low voltage, all the jacket colors were the same. All the wires were the same color. So if you were pulling 20 cables into one location, how did you know what end went where? Because wire connects one end of a device to another end. That's what it does, or it goes to a panel, whatever it is. So wire is a singular thing and then connects point A to point B. When you take a bunch of wires and bring them into let's say a closet or a rack, and they're all the same color, you have to separate those wires out, terminate them, ring them out, ring them in, very labor intensive. So what we did is we just started stocking those items in different jacket colors. So you could buy the same item in 3 or 4 different colors. Well, now you knew, hey, I got a green wire here, find the green wire in the other end. Now, if you have 7 green wires out of a bundle of 20, you only have to go through 7 wires, not 20 wires to find it. And then we started printing on since there were different applications, security and building automation, or RS-232 cables. We actually printed on the jacket what the application was. So if someone was doing a building automation system, temperature control, they could buy a item that said building automation. And again, now you can isolate your buildings from other wire in the building. And then we made the wire a tape measure for essence, in essence. So every foot of cable we put, a standard spool of wire and cable is 1,000 feet. So we would count backwards: 1,000, 999, 998. So what would happen is you diminish the wire because you don't pull 1,000 feet at one time. You may have a run of 20 feet, then a run of 100 feet, a run of 60 feet. What we did is we kept the tape measure so someone could look on their reel and say, hey, how much wire do I have left on this reel? Or how long is my installed length segment? So we just took a commodity and added some value added features, and then we just kept building on that, and then we moved on to offer, hey, we're so confident in our ability to service our customers. If we don't have what you need, we took the top 20 items we sell, we created something called smart, we called the product smart wire, And then we created this Smart Wire Select program, which was, hey, if we don't have in stock what you need, we don't ship it. And not only that, if we have it, but we don't ship it the same day you order it, you don't pay for the item. You get it free of charge. So now we were putting our money where our mouth was, right? Our service levels were so high, we could guarantee these tremendous shipping guarantees and inventory guarantees. And that gave those who maybe weren't confident in us, since we were a newer company, confidence to give us an opportunity. And look, we just built that company one customer, one customer, one customer at a time. I
Where
started
did that knowledge? First of all, you're a sales guy. Where's this knowledge of electric? Was there like a background in this? Like, how did
nothing. No, there's there.
what made you come up with this idea? Because I have 84
Well,
companies.
Very
That's
creative.
definitely not an idea that I'd be like, wow, fucking wires and
okay. So if you read the book, there's the story. It happened in May of 1994, I believe it was, and I was sitting at my desk, and they were doing some electric work in the office. And sure as shit, a faceplate was off the wall, and there were the wires were dangling out of the wall. The green, the white, and the green, the white, red, or green, white, and black. I don't remember exactly, but they were hanging outside the wall. And I'm like, why do they have those colors? And I knew why they had the colors. I'm like, bingo, right there. Why don't we do this for low voltage? That's how it happened.
Hmm.
wow. Zenas, you have a question?
Well, I mean, I find the wire industry actually interesting. The way that I found you, Rich, is I listened to a podcast. This year I helped a client exit out of the wire company, Gabbett Wires. I don't know if you know of them. I helped them sell a company who's actually the family office who buy him is coming on this podcast in a few weeks. So just in general, there's so many variations of different product lines in wiring is crazy.
Crazy.
You could be in the commodity business or you could be in the custom business, and
Yes.
it's always a fascinating model.
Yeah. There's, I get calls, people ask me to consult, and they might be like shipboard cable. I'm like, I don't know anything about shipboard cable. People say, well, wire's wire. Um, but it's really important to understand your audience, your customer, how they use it in the field, how they work. For all practical purposes, our products going into commercial buildings, right? So, what is the number one thing our customer need? They need that job done in a timely fashion, which means we've got to be able to deliver the product on time and allow the contractor to install that product in the most efficient manner. And then that leads me down the road to, this is 1994, all of this is going on. Fast forward 13 years later, we invent and patent a packaging system. And again, you asked a great question. You said, Rich, you're not an electrician. How did you do this? I did this because when I saw that, and then I started asking questions. So when I talk to young salespeople or old salespeople, because most salespeople are not very good, they sell by accident. Okay. Or they sell because the other salespeople they sell against are pretty bad. Salespeople are not curious enough.
Yeah.
They don't probe and they don't ask questions. So I began to ask questions. Hey, when you're in a closet, you have 20 wires that are all white. How do you separate them? How do you tone them out? What do you do? Oh, one guy goes to the location, another guy there. It's a two-man job. Okay. If there was something like this available, is this something that would interest you? How would you utilize this? What colors would you like? So you just probe and you ask questions and you learn. Um, that is how you understand what the wants and needs are of your customers.
Which
let me flip it to another. Just give us an idea of revenue and profit year one, year two,
Year
year
one, we did one. Well, year one, we did 1.1 million in sales. We actually cut
incredible.
and we started out as a C corp. I don't know why. Don't ask me why, but we
double
did.
taxation, double taxation.
Yeah. So don't ask me why we did. 9 months in, we didn't have an accountant. We started the business. We didn't know better, right? So our accountant comes in and says, "Listen, we're cutting you guys off at 9 months. You're making too much money. Be a C corp. We're going to switch you to an S corp. And what we're going to do here is we're going to run and then a 6 month year, and then we'll run a full year." So we did. I think at 9 months we did 1.1 million.
What's the
We
profit on that?
uh we probably made, I have the tax returns. I probably made 30 or $40,000 that year. but we also were going through a lawsuit. The old company sued me.
Mm.
We spent a shit ton of money defending ourselves. It's probably the most compelling 4 chapters in the book is that lawsuit, because you sit there with me as this whole thing unravels and expires, and there's fraud committed to the federal government in this whole I mean, it's a crazy story.
Just for the record, the book is coming today. I just got back from Australia from the like literally like at 1 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah.
I ordered on the way. It is coming.
Okay, good. Well, you're gonna just the law. I mean, the law. You could make a mini series just on that lawsuit.
Well, the funny
Netflix,
thing
if
is,
you're out there, you can buy the rights because it's an unbelievable story. So, but anyways, second year we did 3.8 million. Uh, second year, third year we did 7 million. By the third year, I'm making $1 million a year, right?
But to get to $1 million of revenue your first year, you had to set up a significant operations at that point. I mean, $1 million in production. I mean, you go right off the bat. Were you doing it in-house?
No,
Were you
okay. So
getting it
we
elsewhere? What
started
was
out.
your...
That's a great question. We started out as a distribution model. So we were buying from other manufacturers. So we were having product manufactured for us under our brand, our name, and then we were doing some drop ships. Yeah, I remember when I left, I was the number one salesperson in the company. My customers freaking loved me. Literally, 1 week in business, I had a temporary restraining order slapped on me.
Mhm.
Between November and December, we did almost $500,000 in business. It might have been $500,000 in business. Now, a lot of that money was going to the attorneys. Um, Even back then, lawyers were expensive, but it was amazing because people wanted to support me. And then, then the lawsuit, we had a settlement agreement. That took a while. But once we started that second year, which I think again I was probably July, so really 9 months we did 1.1 million, 500,000 of it in the first 4 months, 500 in the last 5 months,
And
600.
you started with a partner, right?
Gary, yeah, yes, Gary. Me and Gary worked together at the wire company, and then
Were
by the
you
time
both in
I'm,
sales, or was
pardon me.
one in design, product design, and one sales? How did you guys just...
Okay, all right. So um, we basically split up. I handled operations, sales, purchasing, and then Gary handled the payables and receivables,
Mhm.
right, on the financial side of things, and actually some of the shipping as well. When we started, it was just me and him. We didn't know how this thing was going to blow up. Within a week and a half, we needed to bring one person in. Within a month and a half, I think my father was our fourth employee. He had to come out and run the shipping because we were getting slammed.
Amazing.
And it's an amazing story. Um, and by the time I'm 28, I'm making $1 million a year plus. This is 1998, 97. So you tell me what $1 million a year is in 1997. And by 2001, we got our first offer for the business, which was north of $20 million.
Mhm.
Um, and then we did our first monetization event in 2006 at a valuation of $43 million.
and where does the $500 million come in?
That comes in 2020
So what? So during COVID or before COVID?
during COVID.
So what? So did you first monetization event? You sold like some of the equity at the valuation of 43. How much was
Yeah.
that? And what's the decision of that? Did you need money? Is it money to grow? Is it just let's take chip off the table? Because usually it's kind of you're not a tech company, so it's kind of like maybe I raise capital from friends and family or whatever,
All right.
and then I exit. So you stopped along the way.
Yeah, this is a
Tell us
great.
about
So
that
this is
first
a
event.
great question. This is a great question.
That's what
Wonderful.
happens when you're in business, Rich. You ask good
Yeah,
questions.
yeah, yeah.
I
Great.
saw some
Wow.
of the interview. People
So,
didn't know shit
all
about
right. So
business.
this is going to be great because I'm going to walk. I don't know how much time we have, but I have all morning. So I'm going to walk people through things they may or may not know. So when we got our first offer of 20 some million, we signed the LOI. Okay. We had no representation. And then we were excited. Hey, $20 million is, this is more money than we thought we'd ever see. And then I started going through the docs. And I realized that this was going to be called what's called an LBO, leverage buyout, right? So me and Gary were going to retain a very small ownership percentage. Most of the debt was going to be put on the company. The other group was writing a small equity check. And we were going to be paid we're going to go from making millions a year to basically making $150,000 a year and paying down debt and owning a small sliver of the business. So I'm like, LBOs are not for us. They're not for us. We can't do this, Gary. This is a bad deal. So time goes on. We get another deal offered to us for full exit at 24 million. I'm too young. I'm not even 30 years old, or maybe just turning 30. My first child might have been born by now, and I can't do it. What am I going to do? Work for someone the rest of my life? That didn't work out for me the first time. Got another, and the offers kept getting bigger and bigger. 24 million, 28 million, 33 million. And I don't even know why we were talking to these people, because we were never going to sell. We were not going to sell, but I always learn something when I talk to somebody. So 9/11 had happened, and we had, at this time, we got 100% of our net worth in our business.
Mhm.
I have 3 children at this point, or 2 children on my way to my third child, and then my fourth child, and then my fifth child's on the way.
Yeah.
So I got 5 kids, and 100% of my net worth, for all practical purposes, is tied up in the business. And the thought was, well, what if something catastrophic happens? You know, so we decided that we wanted to take some chips off the table, but we were only willing to take chips off the table if somebody wrote us a check. We took that money, goes in our pocket, because the business didn't need any working capital. We had sufficient working capital between inventory and receivables. That money was for estate planning, and they would come on per pursue, meaning every dollar we take out, they take out their pro rata share. Now, back in 2003, 2004, there were very few private equity companies that ran that way. We happened to get a phone call from a guy by the name of David Hollis, and Gary picked up the phone, took the call, and he basically said, listen, David, we've been down this road. We're not interested in LBO. If you can find us a buyer that will write us a check, pari passu, equal partners, we'll talk to him. He said, well, there's only one firm I know that will do that, and that's a firm by the name of Seidler Equity Partners. So we got on the phone with them, and this is the family that sold the Los Angeles Dodgers. And so we knew of them because me and Gary were big baseball fans. Their grandfather was Walter O'Malley. We met these guys, freaking loved them, and they did that deal. They did the deal. They came in, they bought 40% of the company. So me and Gary went from 50-50 each to each of us owning roughly 33%. So they bought 34% of the company, and then me and Gary retained 33% of the company. And then we retained all the control, the board, all of those things. And
What was that check
that check was,
to you? Your
we
son.
each got $6.5 million.
Wow.
It was $13 million.
Did
It was a
you?
lot. It was a lot of risk for the partners coming in, giving away all the control and writing out a check. So,
Yeah.
definitely, you spend a lot of time building that relationship.
Unless they had a play like this is a way to get in, and one day they're just going to exit. That was the like the risk they took, because you're talking about 13 million for private equity. It's not that
Yeah, and that fund was about $100 million fund, if I remember right. So it was about 13% of the
13%,
fund.
which that's big. It's
Yep.
usually that's big.
Yep. It was a small fund at the time. They're the best. I'm still business partners with these guys today. So that tells you how phenomenal they are. Um, so and it's great because we're cash flowing, managing the business well. Then in 2008, they want to buy more of the company. So the valuation goes from 43 million to north of 70 million. And Gary, so you're looking at 33% of 70 million, that's a $20 million plus check. Gary elected to sell 90 to 93% of his equity.
Wow.
Okay.
That was that a tough? Were you like a little upset? Like, dude, where are you going here, bro? Or
No,
were
not at all. No, Gary had checked out pretty much. I was running the company, and that was fine. Gary was coming in maybe one day a week, and so I had that was his
well,
prerogative. I
how
had
how do
no.
you do that when you have like you're both equal partners in theory, right? And he comes in 1 a week. Are you getting a bigger CO salary or salary to offset the fact that you're working more in the business? Or
You know
because a lot of
what?
times that's where the
Yeah, that again, that's a great question. And when I advise entrepreneurs and partnerships, I necessarily don't maybe practice what I preach, but Gary never got in my way, never questioned a decision I made, gave me carte blanche.
let me
No,
guess.
we were
Let me
both.
guess. He's a left brain, they're analytical, and you were the right brain guy.
Yes, I mean we were both paying ourselves. I think
And look at your
160.
arms, bro. He's probably afraid. Your
Yeah,
arms
we
are
were.
bigger than my head.
So
Look at
you-
this. Those are big guns there, Rich.
Yeah. We were paying ourselves $168,000 base salary, and our distribution checks every month were 250,000.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
I didn't care, right? And he was a good partner, and it was sometimes a partner that doesn't do anything that allows you to do everything is the best partner to have.
But Rich,
Because
I wrote a whole book, and one of the most popular chapters everybody's read is that partnerships is where a lot of high net worth individuals, including myself, got burnt because there's always one person working more than the other, and the other person's not. So it sounds like you looked at it as like, as long as I get to do what I want, make the money, I don't care. That's a very rare thing because a lot of times that's where a lot of businesses go.
absolutely, and but you can remember we made money. We made more money every single month from the previous month for every fucking year we've been in business.
Wow.
So, and the other thing is, I needed Gary when I started the business. Okay, so I had no problem with any of that at all, none, zippo, nine, and um, it just didn't matter to me. Okay,
That's interesting.
and when I needed to bounce something off, I had him, and that alone was worth it.
What about the fear of control, though? The fact that he sold all his shares now, it looks like the private
Not
equity
okay.
now owns control.
Another great question. So these guys had been with us for 2 years. So I went to them and I didn't really make, I wouldn't say it was a power play because I don't want this to sound arrogant, but we had a nice discussion. I said, look, guys, I need to have the board. I need to have full vote, full control over everything. I know I'm the minority shareholder, but I need to control the company. If you can't give me that, then I want to exit as well. Well, they knew if I exit, that's bad, right? So we reached an agreement that basically said, hey, if I fail to grow the business this much every year, then I could lose control. So I retained the board. I retained all voting rights, all control. They sat in the background and they were phenomenal and they let me do what I wanted to do.
So, Rich, are you acquiring other companies to grow your Windy City Wire? Like, are you smaller competitors? Did you do any mergers and
All right,
acquisitions
so we did
on the
one. Yeah,
way
we
to
did.
the 500 million
Great
dollar exit?
question. We did one acquisition in 2000, and I think it's six. Bought a very small cable company in Seattle, and I had an incident with some Chinese wire around the same time. I went against every one of my principles and listened to my sales team. Sales team kept saying, we have to buy this one product from China. We have to buy it. We're getting killed. Everything's imported. And I was totally against imported product. Everything we did had to be made in the USA. And I went against my better judgment. And turns out I was right because we are getting inferior product shipped from China.
Mhm.
So I
And
had
it's killing your brand.
I had a Tony Soprano moment with the supplier. There was an importer from Georgia and the guy from China came in, and I would say I had a Tony Soprano moment with them. Threw him out of my office, refused to pay him, told him I was going to sue him for deceptive trade and consumer fraud. Called all my salespeople into the conference room. Actually, it was the kitchen at the time. I said, never again. You guys are effing idiots. And then 2 weeks later, I went out and I bought an American manufacturing company. And I decided to make all of our own products. So we became vertically integrated.
That's a great
Yes,
story.
So,
And let's get to the 500 million, and then Zenas is.
yeah. So then we're just growing.
By the way,
Let's
it
get
could be
to
like
the
the
500
8 hour
million.
podcast. It could
Well,
be the
yeah,
8 hour
yeah.
podcast.
Well,
Get
shit,
to the
okay.
big number, Rich.
You know what? Okay,
Get to
so
the 500 million.
all right. So 2010, the private equity firms got to exit, right? Because the fund of the life's going on. Hire a banker. I don't know if you guys ever talk about investment bankers, how important it is to pick the right one. how most of them are just not very, I don't want to use the word ethical, but they make bullshit up. Does everybody know what a sim is in the audience?
Go ahead and explain. I know what it is, but
All right, so these investment bankers, they put what's together called a SIM. It's a confidential information memorandum, where they put all of your sales in the book, which is all true, right? They show your past history, but then they tell this future story. And this future story they're trying to tell, and every one of them does it, is bullshit. They overinflate, they make things up, they create markets that don't exist. And remember, if I'm selling the company to another private equity firm, I'm going to stand, right? Because I'm going to roll equity and do these things. So I'm looking at this sim and I'm like, guys, this is bullshit. I don't sell these markets. We don't do these things. And I had to tell them, listen, you're going to be off selling your next effing deal, and I'm going to have to work with these people. And I got to deliver the numbers that I'm not telling you I can deliver. So it was a really shitty process. We expected to get a $145 million valuation. This is 2012. Yeah, 2012. We get a $110 million valuation. That's the closest thing we get. We don't even get a firm offer. So obviously we don't exit. Fast forward 2014. Now they really got to exit, right? They maybe have another year window, max 2015. So we sit down with the bankers, and I'm concerned because we had gone to market 2 years earlier and we don't get a transaction done. The same people that are going to get this teaser piece are going to know this company went to market 2 years ago and didn't get a deal done. I thought it was too early. So the investment bankers say, "Oh, it's not too early. It's not too early. You're gonna sell between 165 and 185 million." Okay, great, wonderful. They do the same shit with the sim, all bullshit. I have to straighten them out, and it turns out there's really only one. There's about three serious buyers, and they nailed down to one. And I'm not feeling good because I feel like the investment banker has done a quid pro quo. Let me explain this to your audience. So when private equity companies look to buy a business, they also have a portfolio of companies they need to what? Exit or
exit.
sell. So I thought there was some horse trading going on, saying from private equity group A saying, "Hey, we want Galgano, and if you make this our deal, we'll give you these two deals to sell." Right? So that's how the bankers make their money. They make their money on the fees. So, and the banker intimately knew that 65% of the ownership group basically had to sell, right? Because the fund was coming to an end. And the offer we got was for $135 million. So you're talking $30 to $50 million below what our expectations were. So I said, okay, so this is shit. I'm not letting my company go for 135 million. So I called the banker and I said, I'm not rolling any of my equity. I would have got a check for about, I think, $36 million. Said, I'm not rolling any of my equity. None. I'm rolling it all. Well, if I rolled it all with how much leverage they want to put on the business, I'm going to own 50% of the company. They didn't like, they're like, no, you can own X percent, and this is the way it is. I said, and don't ask me where I came up with this. I said, well, listen, I have options and I don't know if I'm going to take this deal. And I called Bob Seidler back, who was with Seidler Equity Partners, and I said, Bob, I'm not letting this company go for 135 million. And he said to me, he goes, do you want to own this company for 135 million? And I said, yeah, Bob, I want to own this company for 135 million. He said, I will help you. He said, call the banker, tell him we're buying the company back, and we'll make him right on this deal, and we'll buy the company back. So we call this the Great Buyback. So myself, Bob Seidler, Gary, my original partner, we put a little consortium together and we bought the company back for $135 million. We took out the old equity. Anybody that was in the original equity that was getting exited had the option to buy into the new co. And so we call that the great buyback. We took almost 6 times leverage. So I think we wrote a $54 million check. I wrote 26 million of the 54. And We borrowed almost 85, I think $85 million. And we were doing about 13 and a half, 14 million of EBITDA back then.
Wow.
And then between 2014, 2020, rocket ship. And I was 52 at the time, and my 5 kids were getting older, and I I I just didn't know. I didn't want to be in this rat race of selling to private because the guys, at some point you monetize the business, right? You don't have to, but that was the reality for me, is monetizing the business. And I didn't want to be on the rat race, the hamster wheel of selling to another private equity, rolling it, doing it again and again and again. At that point, the valuation we were going to get, I didn't, I had, the difference between 150 million or 180 million or 200 million and 250 million, at that point, it's not going to impact your life at all. So I wanted the best deal for the employees, which was for the company never to be sold again. So I knew I wanted to sell to a strategic. I didn't want to sell to private equity. And by the way, when you sell to private equity, what you don't know who you're partnering with. I mean, this is the biggest joke of a process. You create a teaser piece, you create a sim, you have management meetings, you go out to dinner with these guys, they make you an offer, and then you pick your future partner based on a couple meetings. It's insane how the whole process works. It's
Right.
absolutely nuts. It's like marrying a girl after 2 dates. Who in their right mind would do that? So um, I
Yeah, I
found
mean,
a,
you've done a phenomenal job of picking your partners, though. Like every single time you've picked the right partner to start the business, you picked the right partner, the private equity firm that
yeah,
allowed you to buy a company back. I mean,
yeah,
that just talks about the relationship you had set up with that firm. You've done a great job picking partners. What's this?
yeah. You know what you do? You pick honorable people who are transparent. Look, I've had business where I've had dishonorable people.
Hmm.
I've misread people. I've had people
Hmm.
steal from me. People lie to me.
Hmm.
Um, and I would
How do you
say,
how do you read me? Let's just say
uh,
this first impression. Let's just out of curiosity. Let's see his people reading skill. Whatever you say, it's fine.
you know what, JT?
If I don't like it, if I don't like it, I'll
No,
edit
no,
it.
no.
No, I've
That's
never edited the show.
it's
It's
not
too
a fair
much work to
question.
edit.
It's not a fair question because I haven't got a chance to be curious and
No,
ask
but
you.
but but we could have an original. I mean, you've done enough shows that you have original assessment. I mean, how many?
Yeah, yeah. I would say you are a go-getter, very like me, a little bit in your face. And me and you could probably create some nice damn businesses.
Yeah, pretty much. I already know. Plus,
Yeah.
I'm afraid of your arms.
Oh
So,
God.
so how did we get to the
All
$500 million
right.
final
So we
exit?
decide to look, COVID, I'm like, fuck. You know what? If the government can shut us down for this bullshit, next thing you know, they're going to shut us down for some climate crisis. And I just saw, unfortunately, 50% of the country just fall right in line like lemmings. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, are we the weakest country in the world that we're going to just, capitulate for what I'm going to be proven to be right? Bullshit, as we all know today. Overreaction. Um, Now, if you die because you had diabetes or you were morbidly obese, you had 6 comorbidities, it wasn't, but that's what they should have told everyone, that if you're healthy and young, it's the flu.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, they locked us up in our houses. They destroyed a generation of kids.
And especially Chicago, with the vaccine
Right.
mandates. I lived there during that time, and it was just like you'd go to a Steak 48 downtown, and there could only be like one table per 5 tables. You know what I mean? And so it was
Yeah.
just. Oh, and then by the way, everything was boarded up downtown. If you, I don't know if you had
Oh,
like it
God,
was a.
how about this? How about this? You go to dinner with a mask.
Hmm.
Okay? When you chew your food, you take your mask out.
No, no, hold on. You can
Then
take
you
your
put your
mask off
mask
when you sit
back up.
down. You could when you sit down, you could take your
Yes.
mask down.
Yeah. I mean, how stupid
Crazy.
are you? You really think the virus knows the difference? Like you're eating and it's not going to come. I mean, the lack of critical thinking and common sense. And if there's anybody out in the audience that did that, I'm sorry, but you were dumb. You were manipulated. You didn't think critically. You didn't ask the questions. Think about how ridiculous that sounds.
I,
Golf,
but I think the part
golf
is that
courses,
anybody who had a different opinion was shamed, and that's how it was positioned.
100%.
And I think listen, I took the shot. I have three eyes now. I see better. But I took the shot because I was told I did not want to let anyone who was older than me die. You know, one of my mentors and coaches, George Ross, 94 years old. You know, he was Trump's right hand man for 47 years on The Apprentice. And I
Yeah.
thought of everyone in my life who was older. Like I did, it was more like I didn't think something wrong would happen to me, but I didn't want to kill somebody else because of something I had. And so it was kind of looking forward. Now it turns out you can get the shot, still pass it on. So it was all BS. But
100%.
but I did
Yeah.
I did for a different version. But let's get to the 500
Yeah.
million.
So decide to sell and uh and so I start interviewing. I'm thinking to myself, 2019. Oh, in 2019, we had our 25th anniversary party. Okay, Navy Pier. I hired Toby Keith, thousands of people there. It was like the pinnacle. And so I had reached the top, right? And how do I top this? I'm thinking to myself, how do I top this? I've achieved everything I want to achieve. I know the business is worth $500 million almost, or maybe $500 million, maybe more. Um, I've done everything in my life I want to do, and my father died the year before, and like, what do I have left to prove? So I made the decision that I told the guys, listen, let's start looking at exits. So I started the process in 2019, interviewing investment bankers, and one investment banker mentioned this company, Diploma. They were a publicly traded company out of the UK. They just got a new CEO, Johnny Thompson, and they wanted to get aggressive in the United States. So I did a little research on them, whatnot. So when I decided to sell the company, this is right in the middle of COVID. So you're talking June of 2020, right? No one's selling a freaking company in COVID. Nothing's getting done. Banks are frozen up. So um, I I did not pick that banker that gave me the diploma lead. I did not pick that bank because I didn't feel like they were the best investment banker for me. So I hired an investment banker. I hired William Blair, and after William Blair negotiated their fee with me, I said, look, I want you to go to this company. This is a lead from so and so. You have to pay them $1 million out of your fee for the lead. I said, you're not going to have to do much work on this. So turns out I basically reached out to Diploma, got the meeting with the CEO. We had a Zoom meeting. I really liked him. He's a young guy, a couple of years younger than me, sharp. And we had an LOI. By the way, their internal guy he was okay. He was a little he wasn't my kind of guy, so we pretty much had to push him to the side. And then I negotiated directly with the CEO, and we got to cut a deal. Said we were going to get this done. I said, listen, I'll give you exclusivity. I can live with this deal. You have to. I need certainty to close.
Which was 500 million.
485 million, close enough rounding error, 15 million rounding error. So, and then, yeah, we pretty much got it done. Now he stepped back, and then obviously the lawyers get involved. They almost fucked the deal up a couple times.
Yeah,
They try
some
to
lawyers do.
they try to jam me on working capital. Remember, at this point, I own 60 some percent of the company, so I'm spending 60% of the legal bills. Everything's falling on me, my time. I basically gave them, every time we sent a turn of docs to them, they come back more red line, and I just had it. And then they try to jam me for $3 million on working capital, and I mother effed them on a golf course. I was playing golf, mother effed them. The next day, every week, we had this call, and I didn't go on that call. First call I never went on. Guy by the name of Matt Seidler, who's Bob's brother, was on that call. They don't know who Matt is. Me and Matt and Bob are like this. They're like brothers to me. And Matt just got on the call with him and said, listen, you guys don't know me because I've been business partners with Rich going on 15 years. When he says something, he means it. He's not married to this deal. He's willing to walk away from the deal. We're willing to start a process tomorrow, an open bid process. We'll invite you back in. He goes, here's my advice. The last turn of docs we gave you, those are the final docs. The working capital number Rich gave you is the working capital number. You sign the docs today or there is no deal. And they signed the docs. And then we closed the deal. We signed it in September, and then we closed in the middle of October.
What was your number you walked away with?
Oh, it was a big number. I mean, do the math. I own 60% of the company, 64% of the company.
But there was
Now we had
debt.
11%. We had 11% carved out for employees, and then any employee, what we gave about $65 million away to all the employees in that deal.
Wow. But you also had debt though, right? You had
We
that.
had some debt. Yeah, we had
So
some debt. Yeah,
yeah.
it was a big number. It was
And then
big.
you're in Illinois, so you got double, you got
But
extra tax.
Yeah, yeah, but we had depreciation recapture, but
yeah.
it was a big number. It was big, close to two.
Zen, final question for you.
Yeah, I'm curious of 2020 because there was a lot of things happening. The product line wasn't coming in. There was a lot of issues with shipping. Were you dealing with a lot of business issues at this time that you were
None.
negotiating?
I never shut down my plant. We never shut down our business. Even though Pritzker told us go home, we never went home. We went home for a week. That
Yeah.
was it. I couldn't take it anymore. I sent everybody an email that says, listen, if you don't show up to work Monday, you weren't fired, you quit.
Mm.
So come back to the office on Monday. I gave two people exemptions because I felt they could be at risk. And our total supply chain, I told you, I'm a USA guy. Everything we did was made in the USA.
And that
We
was
had,
an advantage during COVID.
oh my God,
Absolutely.
we crushed it because we were the only ones that had inventory because I was the only one that could produce anything. We had no supply chain disruptions,
Mm.
none whatsoever.
Do you
Yeah.
regret selling at the end of the day? Like if you
Yeah,
had on,
no, well, listen, 50-50 hindsight. Um, yeah, because I'm still working. I thought I was going to walk away after a couple of years, but I still like the business. So
so what do
no,
you do now?
I don't regret. I'm happy the company's doing great. I'm happy that I always deliver, no matter who I take money from, I get them results. So, and I'm a firm believer that if you sell your company at the peak, now obvious caveat emptor, buyer beware. But if you're one of these guys that sells at the peak and you know that business is crashing, karma's going to get you. You need to give that buyer some runway. I'm a firm believer in that,
Yeah,
and
I
that's your
know.
reputation.
Stephen A just said something that was interesting. I don't agree with everything. I find it kind of annoying sometimes, but he was like, I realize that if my boss, I can make a lot of money from my boss, then I'm going to ask for a piece of that, what I generate, as opposed to the entitlement of I should get paid. And that's a very sort of a loyalty, old school mentality that you don't really see today. I think a lot of people are loyal to the opportunity, not themselves.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. All right, very quick. What's the book about? All right, we know what the book is about,
All
but
right. The book is it's about a young kid grows up in a very low middle class home, gets in trouble in high school, gambles a little bit, goes to school, lives this crazy life in school, in high school. I mean, arrested a few times, crazy stories. Um, College, take a job, young age, become a degen gambler, go to GA, start a company, get sued, and then live this incredible life that is the stories that are in the book between the patent story, the argument with the Chinaman, going through these acquisitions or these attempted acquisitions and these monetization events. You walk the reader through starting a business, running a business, going through lawsuits, monetizing a business, once, and then trying to sell, failed process, trying to sell, failed process. You learn about investment bankers, you learn about private equity. This book is for everyone. It's for kids that are in college. By the way, a couple schools have made this book reading requirements in major universities. I'm going to speak at St. John's College Monday. I'm going to speak at Notre Dame in November in South Bend. Um, about entrepreneurship, starting a business, all the facets, the good, the bad, the ugly of investment bankers, private equity, um, dividend recaps, things like that. So the book's about everything. And then I became friends with Paul Stanley, lead singer from Kiss. He's one of my dearest friends. We
I
were at a
know
seven.
Jeans.
Yeah,
This is Gene Simmons, Rich. I
yeah,
am and you're not.
yeah,
Jeans has a money bag logo here.
yeah.
That's a brand.
Yeah, and then I became friends with Toby Keith, and we went hog hunting together. And some of the guys on the trip were his Navy SEAL buddies. They were on the Osama bin Laden raid. I heard some unbelievable stories. I mean, I just lived this outlandish life, and that's really what the book is about.
I mean, yeah, I think everybody should pick it up on Amazon. And Mine's coming. It says on the way to be delivered. So
Yeah. So
by the
yeah,
time I do
just so
it,
the audience know, it was the #1 best-selling nonfiction book, USA Today in June. It was a top 10 book. It was in the USA Today bestsellers list for a few weeks. Made some other lists. So the book has been well received, and I'm happy. I'm happy that people can read it. And if anyone's out there as a struggling gambler, pick up the book or call 1-800-GAMBLER. There's hope out there for you. Because there are a lot of people, especially young people today, that are sucked in that world, and they don't know where to go. But there is hope out there.
well, first of all, Dennis and I are going to recap our final thoughts after we go. But Rich, thank you so much for being on the Down to the Wire. This could have been a 4-hour podcast. We'll have to do part 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 because we've just scratched the surface.
Yeah, we
But it'll
did.
be much better when you guys actually read the book to put it into context. So as soon as you read the book, we'll do another podcast. Thank you so much, Rich. You are the man. And please stay tuned for Zennis's Eyes final thoughts. Wow, the energy and the stories. We're definitely going to have them to come at Mega Success, our biggest event in the world. Definitely, guys, pick up this book and do me a favor before we go to final thoughts. If you could subscribe to this channel, like, comment, tell us, what do you think about that? It helps the algorithm. And if you want to do M&A, either with my money or you want to learn how to do yourself, the link is in the chat. And I also have 2 best-selling Businesses War, one of which is the first one, Business War, how every mistake I've made and a lot of partnership mistakes, lesson have, and now just recently launched inside the Sydney Opera House, Businesses War AI, which is now the #1 book, especially on AI. Make sure you guys pick it up on Amazon as well. What do you think, Zennis? How would you sum up this interview?
Well, if this is not the American dream, I don't know what is. Started working for a company, got in controversy with the owner, went in and opened up the company, we did $1 million in revenue. $1 million his first 7 months in business or 8 months in business, and then concentrated on domestic production to $500 million in exit. I mean, this is the story. I love studying these cases. This is what I love about M&A. Like,
Well done.
look
I
at
give you
this.
credit for getting him. He's already texting me as well as just literally I was doing this interview saying, man, that was the best interview I've had. Hopefully you guys like it too. And we all go through adversity, and we just have to sometimes push through. It happens. Don't quit. Have that energy, have that enthusiasm, have that lock in. And mergers and acquisitions, where it's at $1.9 trillion million. Do it with us. Do it with my money. Do it yourself. Link there before. We'll see you on the next show because buckle up. We have a phenomenal surprise for all of you, but you have to subscribe. You have to like and comment. We appreciate everybody. We'll see you next time.